Yo, Xnull here, and it has been about almost 2 months since Tower Fantasy Global came out, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on the good and bad of Tower Fantasy. If you guys are new here, I have been making content about the game since release and will continue to make more, so if you guys are interested in that, do check out the other videos. I like to make guides, especially for characters. Before we go into the positive and negatives of this game, and boy do I have a lot to say, I want to preface this by saying that I will make some comparisons with Genshin Impact. I think that's perfectly fine to compare this game to Genshin Impact because of two reasons. The first reason is that Genshin Impact is wildly popular. Everybody knows about Genshin Impact. If you are watching this, you probably have played or are playing Genshin Impact, and it's only natural for the biggest gacha game to be the standard or the baseline for all other gacha games. So whether it's a good gacha game or not, it is the most popular, and thereby it sets expectations for other gacha games. The second reason is that I think it's perfectly fine to compare the two because it attracts the same type of audience. It's the same people who like anime, action games, open world, hack and slash, exploration, pulling for waifus. I think it's a perfectly normal human thing to do. So first I want to talk about the positives, and we're going to start it off with the meat of the game, which is the combat, the action combat. There is so much to do. It is so dynamic, and personally I think it's more dynamic than Genshin Impact. There's normal attacks, there's hold attacks, aerial attacks, dodge attacks, and then you mix in these relics where you have so many choices from these relics, and then you weave that in while you're doing these other things that you normally do when fighting enemies. Yeah, super dynamic, and I enjoy it very much. Let's discuss the exploration of Tower Fantasy. I feel that the movement options in the game give you a lot of freedom, a lot of mobility, and it makes the exploration experience much better than, say, trying to climb mountains slowly in Genshin Impact. In Tower Fantasy, you do actually have your own jetpack and your own grappling hook, which you can use at any point. You also have the double jump and the air dash. I just don't think it's believable that the characters are doing all these sorts of crazy athletic attacks and special skills and bursts, and then when they run into a wall they go ooh, ooh, ooh. It just kills immersion, right? So I feel like characters in an action game should be able to do these air dashes and double jumps, and it just makes the transition between combat and exploration seamless and feel better. Now let's talk about the gacha mechanics of Tower Fantasy. Now I know we are in the positives, and gacha is probably a negative in most people's eyes. I myself don't like gacha. I would have preferred if this game wasn't a gacha, but we are playing the game, so we are already past that stage of accepting that the game is gacha and playing the game. So now we talk about how generous is the gacha, or how punishing is the gacha. Is it friendly for F2P or low spenders? Well, I've played a lot of gacha games in my life, and I think Tower Fantasy is comparatively more generous than many other gacha games, and it is definitely more generous than Genshin Impact. You get so many pulls from exploring the map and doing the puzzles and activities. Doing one mini puzzle in the map in Tower Fantasy gets you 1 pull. Now Genshin Impact gives you 2 Primo Gems. You're gonna need 80 of those to do 1 pull. So just imagine spending maybe an hour, maybe a couple of hours doing 80 puzzles, and now you have 160 Primo Gems, and then you pull, and after those couple of hours you get 1 3-star weapon. So yeah, very much generous in terms of the exploration. It gives you pulls, and then you also get pulls from events, lots of free pulls from events, lots of free pulls from dailies as well, and then you got lots of freebies like daily logins and Kloto supply pod. And then there's so many ways to get the dark crystal, which is what you can use to buy red nucleus. So overall, taking into account the rewards from the base gameplay and then the events and all the other freebies that are coming in, yeah, it is very generous in terms of giving you that currency. I'm sure that F2P players by now have most, if not all, of the SSRs, the standard SSRs at least. And as an F2P player, I think that's a very fun experience for you to be able to have all these choices of SSRs and pick which one you like to play as, instead of in other gacha games where you are forced to play whichever SSR or 5-star you got because it is really hard to get them. So whatever you got, that's the one you're stuck with. You have no choices. Another thing that I love about this game is the fact that you can buy duplicates of the standard SSRs that you already have. This is huge because in other gacha games, there's no way to buy these duplicates. You'd have to keep pulling and relying on RNG to get the duplicates of the weapons that you want. Now let's talk about the equipment RNG of this game. I feel like it isn't too bad. The artifact system in Genshin Impact is dreadful. There's so many layers of RNG. The kicker is, in Genshin Impact, you still have to concern yourself with the main stat of the artifact, and that just creates another layer that makes it so hard to get good artifacts. At least in Tower Fantasy, there is no RNG on the main stat of the gear. It is always what it is. All you are concerned with now is getting the good 4 substats and then praying to the TOF gods when rolling for those substats. Another thing that I like about TOF Global is that the devs, as far as I can tell, are actively trying to balance the game, meaning they're trying to lessen the power creep. Of course, there's still gonna be a power creep. It is how the business works. You still have to release stronger characters, but I do think that they are still trying to make all characters viable and trying to lessen the power gap between old and new characters. We've been seeing this balancing effort since day one of the game. Tsubasa buffs have been nerfed, Nemesis damage on her thingamajig has been nerfed, and then we kept seeing it moving forward with Frigg changes, with some nerfs on her dodge attacks, and then we got some buffs for Claudia. It just seems like the global devs are paying attention. Anytime you make a player base feel bad by using the only characters that they have, and that these characters are super weak and so far below the meta characters, is just not a good situation all around. It's gonna make players quit and find some other game that they feel like is much more rewarding or much more balanced and is worth their time. And speaking of community, in my experience, the TOF community has been very positive compared to Genshin Impact community. I mean, I am a content creator. I've been making videos for Genshin Impact since it came out, and I kind of stopped a while back. But when I make a mistake in any of the Genshin videos, boy, the comments who point out those mistakes were hella toxic. They would call you names and use words that are so unnecessary. But in TOF, I have made some small mistakes in my videos or just something that people disagree with, but when they do point that out in the comment, they are very civil and very articulate. The good sentences are actually formed without having to resort to insults. So that's my own experience. Let me know how you guys find the community. I'm curious to see what others think, because not everybody's a content creator, and I want to know the perspective of you guys. Now let's talk about the negatives. I love this game, but I have a lot of negative things to say. This video is sponsored by Sakurako and Tokyo Treat. Today we got exclusive snacks straight from Japan. One is from Tokyo Treat and the other is from Sakurako. Tokyo Treat is for more pop culture snacks like Kit Kat, and then Sakurako is traditional snacks made by local artisans in Japan, and you're supposed to eat them while drinking tea. This month's theme for Tokyo Treat is the Spooktacular Snackin', so it's a Halloween theme. Very nice. It comes with a booklet that contains information on the snacks as well as some insight to Japanese culture. And there it is, boys and girls, the Kit Kat. This is the sweet potato flavor. Hey, it's Kit Kat. Very sweet though. Got here the Tohato caramel corn. It's crunchy and it melts in your mouth. It feels like cereal and junk food mixed together. Oh, that's good. This one is the famous Tokyo Layer Loaf. So soft. I mean, it's bread, but it's Japanese. We got drinks in here too. So this is a Purushu Jelly Sparkling Grape Soda. Whoa, it's got bits of nata de coco jelly in it. This is really good. Ah, yes, the Omaibo. I'm always looking forward to this whenever we get these snack boxes. This month's Omaibo is tonkatsu sauce. So good. It's so savory. Just send me a box full of Omaibo and we're good. We do have way more snacks in here, but we're gonna move on to the other box. Letter from the CEO. Very nice. And then of course we got the booklet as well. This sheds some insight into not only the snacks but as well as the Ibaraki Harvest Festival. So these snacks are supposed to go with tea, so I have prepared the Ibaraki Sencha with green tea from the box. Oh, my soul feels soothed. Let's start off with this cute little bean here. This is the Isa Tsuzumi Manju. It's a really moist dough with some mild sweet filling. This is the white peach cookie. Wow, it smells so good. It has a very, very sweet peach aroma. Yeah, these sweet snacks are going well with the tea. Fam, what is this? So these are Ibaraki puffed rice carrot. They're kind of sweet. It doesn't taste like carrot. I believe it's just the shape. It's mostly just sweet puffed rice. Yeah, I absolutely feel like drinking tea with that one. Hey, look at that. They also included a little mini saucer. Very Japanese. This is the Masakado Senbei. I believe it's a rice cookie. Do you hear that crunch? It's mildly sweet and savory. I like it. Oh, this one's got a cute packaging. This is the Beniharuka sweet potato cookie. Ooh, look at that. Not only is it sweet, but it's also very milky and has a nice thick texture to it. We got way more snacks in the box, like this and this and this and this. So if you'd like to try them for yourself, check the link in the description or the comment section, and then use my code XNUL to get $5 off your first purchase. Enjoy your Japanese snacks. First negative: SR weapons are useless. They are so useless after early game. Like, what even is the point of SR weapons? If they have no point, why do they exist in the game? Just remove it altogether if it serves no purpose. Their multipliers on their attacks is way too low. It's nowhere near the realm of viability. And because they're so useless, the gacha experience suffers. What do you feel when you're doing pulls and you see a purple light? Nothing. It's the same feeling that you get with a blue light. It might as well be a blue light or a purple light, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is when it turns gold or red. I don't know why it's a red light when it's gold, but you get my point. Comparing again to Genshin Impact, in Genshin, when you see that purple light, it's still very much exciting, especially if you're F2P or a low spender, to get those 4 stars and those duplicates of 4 stars, because these 4 stars are viable and have uses in different team comps. What the heck are SRs for? It's just added clutter and it serves no purpose. I think SR weapons should be buffed, not necessarily as strong as SSRs. I understand that SSRs should still be stronger than SRs, but it shouldn't be that much weaker. Come on. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is, if there's something in a game that is supposed to be a huge part of the game, a big feature of the game, it should not be something that is absolutely useless. Next is farming for SSR matrices are not fun. There's been a data mine for the pity system in joint operations where you'd have to do more than 60 runs of joint operation to get that pity and get that SSR matrix. And what's worse is that it might not even be the SSR that you want, because there's 2 SSRs. It's a 50-50. Running JO 60 times is not fun, alright? And yes, you're gonna say, well, there's other ways to get SSR matrices. There's world bosses, a Void Rift, there's a gacha system in Vera that's gonna be coming, and then there's this crafting, there's still a gacha in Artificial Island. But given all of that, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna run JO 60 plus times. You're gonna do all the other things, but you will still do JO 60 times. It's not fun. I think a good way to do this is how Honkai Impact does it, which is where you get these materials and grind for these materials again and again until such time that you're able to craft the thing that you want. I think that's a much better system, and it will make every run feel like you're actually making progress towards that goal. Next thing I'm going to talk about, a lot of people may disagree with this and some might call it nitpicking, but I do want to talk about the design choices in the game. I think these may be small things, but these small things add up, and it just makes the game feel like an unpolished game. So what I'm going to talk about is a couple of things. First is why is there a relic called Colossus Arms, and then there is a weapon that looks like Colossus Arms. We're talking about Lyra, a future character. She's got these big metal hands or gloves, which is kind of like the Colossus Arms. I think the existence of both is really dumb. Think about another game like maybe COD. Your primary weapon is an M16 assault rifle, and then you have your utilities, which are the smoke grenade, the frag grenade, the stun grenade, and then the M4 carbine. How do you have an assault rifle on your primary weapon and then have another assault rifle in your utilities? It makes no sense. I think this is a result of maybe the devs wanting to implement these big glove type weapons, and then ended up deciding, maybe let's just put it in a relic, and then later on going back on that decision and going, yeah, actually let's implement a weapon. So to me, this just screams a lack of design direction for the game. There's no coherence in the decision making in the design team or whatever team is handling it. Another bit of evidence that is pointing to what I just said is that why do some SRs have SSR versions and others don't? Where's my SSR cannon? Where's my SSR hammer? There's no parallelism, no cohesion in the design choices. And finally, this one's still in the same point I'm trying to make, a bit of a controversial take. When you look at the whole cast of Tower Fantasy, all of the 3D models, there isn't like a sort of theme that you can see. They all look like they come from a different bunch of games and universes put into this game altogether. Like, there's no motives. Like, if you look at Genshin Impact, pick one character from any nation and then another character from a different nation. You look at these two characters, you can tell, yeah, they look like they're from the same game, same world. They just ooze the same design philosophy, and you can see motifs from these different characters that are common. So yeah, might not be a big deal to a lot of players, but to me, it just makes the game feel less polished, less premium. It degrades the beauty and the aesthetic of the game. Okay, back to gameplay. We are reusing a lot of enemies, especially the bosses. I was so excited for when the raids came out, and then only to end up having to fight Apophis and Frigg and Valkyrie. Bro, we've been fighting Apophis so many times before raids came out. Apophis is a world boss, and he also appears in Frontier Clash. We've done that so many times. Frigg is a worse offender because she appears in Bygone Phantasm and Void Rift and Frontier Clash. And then Valkyrie is always in Frontier Clash. She's always the third boss. So why is it that we get this new content, but it's not actually new content? It's the same bosses, and it's not even an actual raid. The raids in MMOs usually have mobs and dungeon crawling and platforming and traps, and then you fight the boss at the end. But here is just a boss fight. What's the difference between this boss fight and the boss fight in the open world? Nothing, except maybe a little new mechanic. I wish there was just new bosses in these raids so that they would feel fresh and feel special, because we can only do them once a week, right? Now let's talk about the sound design of the game. There is no sound effects balancing at all. When you're fighting alone, yeah, you hear some sound effects, that's cool, but now when you're fighting with 4 people or 8 people or maybe even 20 people on a world boss, all of the sound effects pile on top of each other and it just becomes so loud in your ears. It's not a good experience. And then on top of that, even when there isn't a lot of things happening, even when there's just 4 players on the screen, it happens a lot where when you swing your weapon, there's no sound effect hit, and it makes it feel like you're hitting air. You know, it's nice. It doesn't feel good. Sound design in this game needs a lot of work. Now on to the big thing, which is the missing MMO aspects. This game is being advertised as an MMORPG. The last few trailers on Tower Fantasy Global, you can check them out. Check out the character trailers. At the end of the video, they'll be like, MMORPG. So if this is an MMORPG, where are our MMO aspects? MMOs always have and have prided themselves in the socialization aspect, which is something you can do in town hubs, huge towns with hundreds of players in them. And also crew hubs or guild hubs, guild housing, where all of your guild mates, you can hang out with them and socialize, because that's what people do in these games. They socialize. What is the point of an MMO if you're just gonna play by yourself? Might as well play a single player game. Hanging out in MMOs is one of the most fun things to do in MMOs besides the actual gameplay, and it's the same reason why people love to hang out in Discord calls, even though they're not really doing anything. So instead of having that in a Discord call, why not put it in the game? That way it's much more fun. There's actually some interaction, people walking around, maybe doing some emotes and just chatting with some bubbles above their head. I think those are some of the best parts of MMOs, and I'm looking forward to Tower Fantasy really growing and implementing more of these MMO aspects. MMO means massively multiplayer online. 30 players in a world is not massive. It's a lot, it's not massive. Oh, it just started raining really hard, so you might hear that on the mic. I do apologize. There is one crucial thing I haven't discussed, and that is the progress locking that is in the game. that may be a good or a bad. It really depends on your point of view and what state you are in life. I mean, if you're still at the point in life where you just spend all day playing games, then the progress logging probably is something that you don't like. But for me, I think it's good. I think it's pretty good because I don't have to grind all day and feel like I'm left behind if I don't do that. There's really nothing stopping you from playing a different game once you have nothing to do in Tower Fantasy. And I think that's okay. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Tower Fantasy after playing for 2 months of hardcore everyday grinding. I'd love to know your points about the game, whether it's good or bad, or if you disagree with any of my takes. Let me know in the comments. I enjoy reading those. So yeah, thanks a lot, and maybe you'd like to join a community of Tower Fantasy players. I invite you to join our Discord. That's discord.gg/xfam. It's a great place to be in, and I'll see you there.